The WTA, the governing body of women's professional tennis, had just dropped a bombshell that would send shockwaves through the sport. No press conference, no grand announcement, just a quiet update to the eligibility policy posted on their website on July 19, 2026, and the tennis world exploded. Effective July 21st, every female player on the WTA Tour must undergo a mandatory, one-time genetic sex test to compete. A cheek swab, a blood sample, a saliva test, all to detect the presence of the SRY gene, the DNA segment on the Y chromosome that triggers male sexual development. The reaction was immediate. Furious, unforgiving. Australian tennis legend Rennie Stubbs ripped the decision as stupid and bizarre, questioning why the WTA would rock a boat that's not sinking when the organization is already struggling financially. Players are angry. Fans are divided. And the debate over fairness, privacy, and the future of women's tennis has reached a boiling point. There are no known transgender players currently on the WTA Tour. No one is being targeted. No one is being excluded. So why now? Why this? Why, with the U.S. Open just weeks away, would the WTA ignite a firestorm of controversy? The answer is not simple. The answer is not comfortable. The answer may change the sport forever. This is the story of a rule that has tennis players furious, and a sport that will never be the same. Welcome to RallyVerse. The rule was announced without fanfare. No press release, no media briefing, just a silent update to the WTA's women's eligibility policy, first reported by tennis journalist Ben Rothenberg on the Substack Bounces. The policy, effective July 21st, 2026, requires all players to undergo a one-time genetic sex test to maintain their eligibility to compete on the WTA Tour. The test screens for the SRY gene, a DNA segment found on the Y chromosome that initiates male sex development in utero. It can be conducted via a cheek swab, blood sample, or saliva test. A negative result, showing no presence of the SRY gene, allows the player to compete. A positive result renders the player ineligible pending further medical assessment. Players must sign a document agreeing to the testing, and refusal could result in disciplinary action. The WTA's previous policy, updated in 2024, permitted transgender women to compete if they had lowered their testosterone levels to below 2.5 mol continuously for the previous 2 years. That policy is now gone. The new rule is based entirely on biological sex, the presence or absence of the SRY gene. We want to preserve the integrity of women's professional tennis and maintain fair competition for all players, the WTA said in its statement. The WTA recognizes that this is a sensitive and complex issue and is committed to treating all players with dignity. But the tennis world was not convinced. There are no known transgender players currently on the WTA Tour. The policy, in effect, is a solution in search of a problem, and players and legends alike are furious. Australian tennis legend Rennie Stubbs didn't hold back. On her podcast, she called the decision stupid and questioned why the WTA would choose this moment to wade into such a divisive issue. The WTA is already in all kinds of problems financially, among other things, she said. It makes no sense to me. Why rock a boat that's not sinking when the thing that might be sinking is the WTA financials? Stubbs pointed out that there are currently no transgender players on the WTA Tour. For such a small percentage of people in the world that identify themselves as trans, I don't see it as a problem, she said. She also revealed that she had to undergo similar testing to compete in the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. We actually got given a card to basically say, "Oh, yeah, you're a woman. You have the genes of a female, therefore you can participate," she recalled. I thought it was such an invasion of my own privacy back then. Hall of Famer Pam Shriver also weighed in, revealing that she had to take such a test 48 years ago, at just 15 years old. But the most passionate response came from 18-time Grand Slam champion Martina Navratilova, who, ironically, was once coached by transgender pioneer Renee Richards. Navratilova defended the policy, dismissing claims it was transphobic or invasive. WTA supports all women. As in females, Navratilova wrote on social media, There is no such thing as an invasive transphobic test, just a once-in-a-lifetime cheek swab. Takes all of 3 seconds. Got it? Males are free to play in the men's tournaments, however, they might identify. Simple. When a critic questioned the policy, Navratilova fired back. Yes, I took that test. All women athletes took that test, until the test was stopped in the 2000 Olympics. And now we are restarting it. There is no reason to have male bodies in female sports. Billie Jean King, the WTA's founder and a fierce advocate for LGBTQ rights, has been noticeably silent, but her past statements suggest she would oppose the policy. The WTA's policy change has left players across the tour furious and divided. World number 1 Aryna Sabalenka had already expressed her opposition to transgender athletes competing in women's sports in December 2025, telling Piers Morgan, "It's not fair. The woman has been working her whole life to reach her limit, and then she has to face a man who is biologically much stronger." But the fury is not just about fairness. It's about timing. The US Open is just weeks away. Players are preparing for the biggest tournament of the year, and now they have to submit to genetic testing. Former US Open finalist Madison Keys has been vocal about WTA rules she believes are crazy and make no sense. She was twice prevented from playing the ATX Open in Austin because of a rule limiting top 10 players in WTA 250 events. Her frustration is shared by many who feel the WTA prioritizes bureaucracy over the players' welfare. Many players have criticized the WTA for not consulting them before implementing the rule. Stubbs questioned whether the WTA player board, which includes players like Jessica Pegula, had pushed for the change. "If the players are pushing for this, I want to know who they are," she said. There are also concerns about privacy. Genetic testing collects sensitive biological data. Critics worry about how that data will be stored, who will have access to it, and what might happen to players who test positive for the SRY gene, even if they have always lived as women. The new rule also raises questions about athletes with disorders of sexual development. Individuals who may have the SRY gene but have complete androgen insensitivity syndrome and have not gone through male puberty. The WTA's policy makes exceptions for such cases, but the process remains unclear. The WTA's rule change has ignited a firestorm of controversy that extends far beyond tennis. The policy follows similar mandates from World Athletics, World Boxing, and the International Olympic Committee. The IOC implemented its own SRY gene testing in March, following President Donald Trump's executive order on sports. The debate is deeply polarizing. On one side, proponents argue that protecting the integrity of women's sports is essential. On the other, critics say the policy is discriminatory, invasive, and unnecessary. Human rights organizations and LGBTQ advocacy groups have condemned the policy. The UK charity Stonewall criticized the IOC's implementation as something that stokes further division in our increasingly polarized world. Dr. Andrew Sinclair, the professor who first identified the SRY gene, has questioned the accuracy of the test. "All it tells you is whether or not the gene is present," he said. "It does not tell you how SRY is functioning, whether a testis has formed, whether testosterone is produced, and whether it can be used by the body." The WTA's policy has also been compared to the invasive sex testing that many female athletes endured for decades, including Caster Semenya, the South African track legend who was forced to undergo humiliating procedures. Semenya's words haunt the debate. "Men want to take control. It's not about protecting the women's category." No, but Navratilova remains defiant. She claimed the policy is not about protecting trans people. It is about protecting women who are the most vulnerable in this situation. The WTA's new rule has torn the sport apart. There are no known transgender women on the WTA Tour. The rule is a response to a perceived threat, not an actual one. Yet it has ignited a firestorm that threatens to overshadow the US Open itself. For Alex Ila, the rule change adds another layer of pressure. The 21-year-old Filipina has just climbed to world number 28. She is preparing for the US Open, where she will be seeded for the first time. She has faced controversies before: the $50,000 fine, the tournament snubs, the questions about her serve. But this is different. This is about the fundamental question of who gets to compete in women's tennis. Ila has not publicly commented on the rule change, but her past statements suggest she believes in fairness and equal opportunity. She has spoken about the struggles of players from developing countries and called for the WTA to do more. Citation: whether she supports or opposes a rule, she is now part of a sport that is deeply divided. From the cracked courts of Quezon City to world number 28. From being fined by the WTA to the WTA's most controversial policy in decades. From being told she couldn't do it to standing on the brink of Grand Slam glory. Alex Ila has defied every expectation. Now, she must navigate a sport that is tearing itself apart. Laban lang. Always. And remember, on RallyVerse, we bring you the stories that define the sport, the drama, the controversies, the moments that change everything. Stay tuned for more.